How would you define sustainability?
Yeah, it's definitely a really big word that I think has been gaining traction over the past few years. I really think there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think it's just how to meet the needs of today while being in balance with what's going on around you in an event that you can have similar outcomes, if not better, in the future.
Um, Thank you. Um, so do you think that sustainability could be related to the wellness of a person? More like, okay, so do you think you can do like a project in my case that could be related to sustainability, but also connected with the wellness of a person rather than focusing mostly on the environment? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, definitely. I think sometimes like environmental racism or it's a privilege to be sustainable and health and wellness can kind of get that notion. Really what I think though is you kind of look at the roots of really human beings. I look at food, but I think food is the entry point of we're just humans are separated from nature, and that was kind of done by a design, the more like historical context of colonialism and capitalism, if you will. So really, I think the way to think about it is what's good for the environment is good for a human being, in that we are creatures. And I think it's easy to forget that separation that's kind of historically been put down into us, that being sustainable or caring about the environment is like something you need to do outside of yourself, where naturally we're part of the environment, where I was doing some work with like analyzing the trash in the city of Flagstaff. And what I was finding was most of the trash, if you see on the side of the roads, they're fast food, alcohol and soft drinks and snack foods. And none of that is good really for human health. And none of it's good for the environment, i.e. in terms of the plastic being there. So again, it's really hard to kind of see how you can shift behavior and make sustainability. It's easier to just grab a quick soda and throw it out and leave it on the street, or like a bag of chips and be done with it, than it is to take some time to cook fresh produce. But I really think it's just seeing the way of the awareness of where you are and how you can kind of move and more in a balance.
So where do you think research and sustainability is mostly focused on right now? And where do you think it should be focused?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have like I said, my sliver is really kind of on food. I've seen kind of the climate change. I think really what you see a lot of it is in kind of the macro level stuff, in terms of there's the carbon in the atmosphere and this country is doing this and we're trying to do this and we're trying to organize, and how do we make the economy in a way that's, has no emissions. So I think carbon is a really big buzzword and like a big buzz idea that's getting a lot of research, and ocean, ice melt and things like that. And I really think where more research needs to be done is how does the micro level everyday living expression tie into those things? Because I think what we hear is you watch any of these kind of documentaries, like the one Leonardo DiCaprio made, or, just kind of go on and just, there's something new about, some event is coming, some catastrophic things happening, the forest fires. And I feel like all you're left to do is stay on your Twitter feed and be scared, or take a shorter shower, ride your bike, change your light bulb. And I'm not discrediting those things. However, really it's like where really are more profound individual actions perhaps that can be easily shared within a collective to slowly morph that into a macro. Meaning you're never going to just go and knock on the city of Flagstaff's door and say, you need to start doing compost, you need to do this, and make it, everyone has to do it. It's more so kind of figuring it out for yourself, and maybe like, how could I get my neighbors or the people that live above me and below me, and how can we kind of do that? And what you're seeing is that you're not just like doing the good thing and being sustainable, but you're probably getting to know your neighbors better. You don't have to cook as much because maybe you're starting to do potlucks. Again, like social distancing and things like that. But it's like, where are these entry points that are relevant to you, that you're curious about, that maybe don't solve the forest fire or the coral reef being damaged, but it proves a set of behaviors and a way of living that makes it more in flow with other people? Because these are social issues, and I think to discredit it as technology and money will solve it, it's like I can give you the basketball shoes, but if you can't play on the right team and feel comfortable, you're never going to excel. And I think it's figuring out how to kind of make and build community around these behaviors, so you're not seen as weird or privileged.
I agree. So what resources do you think would be useful when looking into sustainability projects?
In what sense?
I would say, like, let's say, like, if I want to do some research here in the city of Flagstaff, like, where would you recommend me to go to be able to kind of begin my research? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and let me know if I go on a safari with this answer. I feel like, again, sustainability is broad, so it's just like, I think the question is like, how can things be more rebalanced in a way that there's not as much waste or certain people kind of left out? And so really what I think is just, it starts with a general awareness, an awareness to you, because you're doing this work, or you're going to be engaging and organizing people to do this work. So if you don't care about renewable energy, I wouldn't say waste, it's not to say that doesn't need a shift, but don't do it, because you're going to walk into a room, or you're going to pitch to city council, like, this person doesn't care. But someone sees it in your eyes and can feel it, like, whoa, okay, yeah, let's get on board. So I'd say for the individual to really consider, what are they passionate about? What are they interested in? And then slowly kind of seeing what are the factors that have kind of led to why it's not happening. Basically, what's the need? How do we make it happen? Historically, why hasn't it been happening? And kind of seeing who's doing the work, because I think there's this issue of, there's people on the margins that have been living sustainably forever because of their situation or forms of oppression. And it's like listening and being aware before it was really chic. And then slowly kind of seeing who's doing it, so you don't have to feel like I have to create it out of thin air. And how can you slowly kind of add your different input? You study something more in the bio field that might not be related to waste, but you're looking at an ecosystem, you're studying a cell, and you can kind of use that way of thinking. There's in this, like, working with that diverse group of perspectives to really solve these issues. I think that's what's needed.
And why do you think sustainability and conservation are important? I know it's like a really big question, because it's like you can say many things, but I would say, like, more as in, like, your personal, on a personal level, like, not personal level, but more as an individual. Does that make sense?
So why is it important to me to try and live this way? Yeah, I mean, I look, we're animals. And to discredit, maybe there's beard and things like that. Throw. Oh yeah, of course he's kind of like that, and that's very well if people feel like that. But really, what I'm trying to say is, never forget we're animals, and we have this hardwired frame that has evolved over the years to feel feedback in our environment and understand, like, there's something kind of off. Like when there's a storm going on, your dog will go crazy. Because they know someone's at the door. We have those instincts, and I really feel like I was living in a way where I wasn't doing a lot of this stuff, and I saw this stuff firsthand. I saw bulldozers in Indonesia pushing trash back into the ocean. I had never seen that before. Seeing a rainforest getting clear cut, seeing a coral reef totally decimated by an industrial fishing rig. And it's maddening, it's terrifying, and I think it'd be one thing if, oh geez, like, we have to be so depressed solving these issues. It's just going to be this long battle that's full of pain and suffering and anguish. And look, it's not going to be an easy road. But what I found on the flip side when I was seeing this work is, it's like the more connected you are, the better you feel about it. And it's a lack of connection. Isolation and addiction, the opposite of that is connection. And you can feel so isolated. Oh, I don't know what to do. Or, oh, you get so mad people aren't doing it. You get addicted to, like, checking the news and all this chaos that's going on. It's really like, get connected with what's going on around you. Like, man, my neighbors, like, they just throw out their trash all the time, and they don't, like, recycle. Like, how could I really care about that? How could I slowly, like, just build a relationship with them? Not even about the recycling, because people, it's a feeling that people want to do. They'll do something if they feel better doing it. And for me, I don't know, I'm a very easy living dude. And I really feel like there can be a sense of joy in rallying people behind this, and that's where I found with food. You know, I found I was working in these kind of sustainability circles, and everyone was just, you know, oh yeah, like we kind of need to reduce like eating meat or doing that. And I just really felt like, you know, this is something that, you know, 15, 20 years from now, people will read in the textbooks and being like, why the heck were you doing this? You know, but it's not just bashing people and being angry. It's like serving good food and eliciting a feeling. You know, maybe you can share some of your perspectives of coming out to our events, where that's really what it's about. It's not about like, oh, you're not vegan, get out, or you're vegan, great, like we love you more. It's, wow, where are you at, and how can you slowly like see that it's about being part of something bigger than yourself?
Nice. So do you think it's more of a, I know I mean, it is a personal decision, but why do you think many people refuse to believe in sustainability? Like, because, you know, sometimes like I've seen it, like you were mentioning too, like on Twitter and stuff like that, where we can like see all these things that are going around the world. And it's just somehow people still refuse to acknowledge it. So why do you think some people refuse to acknowledge that we need to move forward to sustainability, to a sustainable life?
Right. Yeah. You know, I think the word I'd throw out is like, it's kind of been in the cheek, I suppose, but it's kind of like regenerative, you know, regenerative living, where it's like this, like the waste of one end, you know, it's like just nature, how it's like there's a cycle, living more in a cyclical nature. I, I guess just kind of speaking in a generalized sense, you know, people, like using the word people, like, I don't know, take it with a grain of salt of what I'm saying with people. I think there are those that maybe on a macro level, like the bigger picture, aren't as like gung ho about, yeah, let's move. We know there's like this information is coming up the pipeline. Let's start to shift. Because simply put, because I think, you know, there's just a financial incentive to continue on in that way. It's more, they are making more money making this plastic wrapping, sending it here, and then they can deal with the waste, rather than maybe trying to see how they can minimize their waste or move to a better form of packaging or more local production. Again, because it's just set up in a way that they're making enough money that it's not worth it to switch. And I think no the less, it's the same thing with an individual. You know, people know that, you know, you don't need to do any more research to show that waking up early and not checking your phone and maybe going and doing some exercise is good for you. But people get enough of a feeling of, I'm going to wake up later, have a coffee, do this, do that. It's like changing our habits requires a little bit of a readjustment. And that doesn't maybe have a short-term pleasurable reward right away. But if you ride with it long enough, you're like, oh, I never needed that. Or, oh yeah, wow, I've been doing yoga for 3 months now, and how could I have never done this? So I think it's not necessarily a malicious thing of, yeah, I don't want to do it, I don't care about the environment. I think there's a benefit to the behavior, the pattern that's going on. And it's just finding a way to help people or help these organizations or these groups to see that there is a benefit in that gray area. And I think that gray area is a connection, because we don't have to do it alone. You know, take it back to the individual level, like sustainable, like, yeah, it's probably hard to wake up at 6 a.m., but it's a lot easier to wake up knowing if you have a really good friend that's going to go on that walk with you, you know? So again, I think it goes back to that connection where these businesses, like, I don't think it's this us versus them mentality. We need to move away from that of like, you know, people's livelihood depends on maybe some of these fossil fuel companies or things like that. And it's like, how can we work with them to really meet what needs to happen? And that's listening.
Thank you. So in your opinion, what is the relationship between sustainability and plant-based food?
Yeah, you know, I think it's like nutrition and food and sustainability can kind of get intimidating, you know, and I'll preface, like, I'm always learning. I'm not the expert. And really what I think, it's like starting from the most basic principles. And sustainability, you know, right, it's like being able to do something now and know that you can kind of do it moving forward, right? And I think we've kind of, not, I guess but society has shifted in a way where thousands of years ago, we were able to just rock up, have our instincts, find food and eat it. No one needed to tell you what to eat. But we live in a situation where food is more of a commodity, and there's a lot of confusion about what to eat, how to eat, where's the best way to grow it, and things like that. So in terms of plant-based diets and sustainability, I would get people to really think from a basic principle level. And I'm not talking about like unique cases of like, well, they hunted whales in Alaska, in the Inuit tribe and things like that. I'm really just talking about from a basic principle, okay? Where do our nutrients we need, where do they originally come from? They come from the ground, minerals, right? Calcium, iron, phosphorus, all these kind of things, right? Do we eat dirt? No. What exactly extracts it from the ground? Plants, okay? Some are edible to us, some are not. So we have a choice, or we're forced to not have a choice, depending on the situation, right? I'm speaking kind of in a general example, So either you're going to eat the plant, or you can eat the animal that ate the plant. And I'm not throwing in ethics. I'm just simply saying this kind of simple, this example. So now what you have, though, is you have these situations where maybe people were hunting animals. That might be the case. Or you had a small little homestead all across the world. Homestead being, small little plot of land. You had maybe a cow and a chicken and things in that. That's just simply not the case anymore. 99% of any animal product, glass of milk, eggs, cheese, pork chop, chicken, you name it, came from a factory farm in this country. And what that means is that this was an animal that was just kind of shoved in a pen with thousands of its other animals. It's not eating its natural food. It's not releasing its waste and moving. It's staying in this system, all just for us to eat this food. Where on the flip side of that as well, we are clearing land to grow food for these animals that we could just eat ourselves. So I'm kind of giving you this multi-pronged example, but it's building off that basic example is that it's totally inefficient, not to mention just like the health side or the ethics side, but just because we're staying in the sustainability lane, it's not sustainable from like a public health standpoint either, because marginalized communities, this waste from these factory farms are getting dumped into their groundwater or sprayed out into the air. So, you may not be suffering from the environmental effects directly, but someone is. And the same could be said for fishing and other things like that, where it's just this ruthless, systematic way is really inefficient. It's damaging to the soil, it's damaging to human health and to the well-being of these animals. And on the flip side, it's like, oh, I wish we had something we could do. Well, these plants are gonna, we can eat plants. And it's kind of simply put as that, where these things like, E. coli doesn't come from lentils. These diseases and things like that. So I really think, you're seeing our world, there's these harsher realities that can come across as being very privileged, or we don't need to hear your agenda. But really, this virus, we wouldn't be talking on this screen if these factory farms didn't exist. So
Exactly.
I know I kind of got a little opinionated there, but I hope that people can kind of hear this and just kind of consider where you're buying, where it goes, and what happens with it.
And I do agree because, in connection with sustainability, buying vegetables is way more cheap than buying meat.
Right.
It just is. There's some products that are obviously like, if you want to, like the whole thing of, like plant-based food as in like fake meat or whatever. It might be a little more expensive, but that's more of a luxury, if that makes sense,
Right.
in my opinion. So, it is possible to live a sustainable life with a plant-based diet.
Right. No, you're exactly right. And I'm glad you brought up the financial, because, I can't tell you today that I watched a slaughterhouse video and that got me, or, I saw this thing, but a lot of it was you said was finance. I'm a big dude and I want to eat, and it's like, holy moly, like lentils are this cheap? Are you kidding me? So like you said, not even going into the kind of the mimicry products, but just it's cheaper, simply put. And that's sustainability, right? Like if you're going to do something, in order to make it sustainable, you have to be able to do it over a course of a period of time. And the financial reality is there, both in time and things like that. So yeah, and you're going to have less plastic wrapping and things like that too. So there's a lot of hidden benefits that totally kind of seep into one and kind of lead an abundant life.
Okay, well, Thank you so much.
I have a quick question for you, really
hmm.
quick. If what do you feel like from your perspective? No, you've kind of come to some of the events. You're really interested in this lifestyle and this way of being. What do you feel like would get more people to really, it's like, okay, like I could give it a try? My sense is that more people are interested in sustainability and plant-based diets. What do you feel like is holding more people back, or what do you think could unlock for more discussion and more people to kind of start to engage with the behavior from your perspective?
I think there's a major, based on my personal experience, there has been a major focus on health. Every single time people ask me about my plant-based diet, they're like, so what are the health benefits? So like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel like more tired? Do you feel full? Do you feel like you haven't gotten sick since you like started eating like plant-based food? And I think that it's been something that every single time that I mention it, people ask me about it. And I'm like, well, I haven't gotten sick really. And it's like all these like health benefits that I like kind of tell them about that I have experienced personally. And it seems like they get more encouraged to shift more towards like the plant-based diet. Um, but when it comes to, I would say like connecting sustainability and the whole plant-based thing, they also ask me about how much it costs me to buy like certain products and stuff like that. And I'm not like a really big person on the whole like fake meat type of thing,
Right.
replicating food and stuff like that. So I always tell them that based on my experiences, like, like food is cheaper. Like meat is generally, that's why I was saying meat is generally way like more expensive. And so I would say that I think that starting with a plant-based diet, in my opinion, does lead a little bit more to getting more involved with sustainability. Because once you start, like for whatever reason, in many people's cases that have asked me, maybe health. I think that starting with health, then you can get into like the ethics and other ways that it can be connected to the environment more than just like being connected to oneself, if that makes sense. So going beyond the benefits that it has as an individual and more as like you said, like in macro,
Yeah.
whatever, macro level. Yeah.
Just a quick follow up. I mean, and that's super cool to hear. And I think that's the case for me, and as well as most people, where it's this selfish benefit, right? And
Mhm.
always spills over into these broader stories, which is a positive benefit. And you, obviously, you kind of mentioned like there's a lot of, hey, yeah, how do you do it? Are you sure? For you, what do you feel like if you could, like, what was kind of a moment of like, oh, like a behavior or a strategy or a tactic that was like, oh, I can do this. Like, was it, what kind of helped you realize like, yeah, I can, this actually was really helpful. And this, what
Um,
led to more of long-term maintenance of the way?
for me, it was more like the way that I was feeling with my body, and it was not only that, and also the connection that I felt with the outside, with the environment. Because at the end of the day, it sounds like a little like um, I don't know how to say it. It sounds like maybe a little extra, I would say, with the whole. I felt like a different connection with nature, but I did. I felt like I was more connected with my body, and I felt like the way that I was treating my body was a way of self love, like in a whole new level, if that makes sense. And also when I would like go out, and it's just like a different self of part. I felt like I had more respect for everything around me. And what I mean by that is like plant wise and animal wise. It's like I was able to see that keeping that diet and those habits that I had were like made me feel really good about myself and about how I treated others. It just, so I would say like more like health wise, I did start feeling really good. And like mentally too, it was like more of I felt liberated, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
No, that's huge, and shine on. That's awesome, awesome to share that. And I think a lot of it is just when you're so intentional with what you're putting in your body, right? Like you went to a party or you went to an event, and it's just like you saw this food. Oh, does that have that in it? Oh no, it can't. Like, you're just aware. You're really aware.
Mhm.
When maybe you weren't aware as much, but that behavior doesn't go away. That feeling, like you said,
Mhm.
of how am I treating my neighbor? How am I talking to people? Am I smiling when I'm walking around? Or where do I put my trash when I'm done with it? Or, what do I do with my time? And I think that's a really profound transformation that shouldn't be shunned.
Mhm.
That people can celebrate. That it doesn't just make your life like conflict free, but it gives you, like you said, you in touch with yourself to really see how you play into the bigger picture.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. This really encouraged me to look forward to doing more research in sustainability and most